I'm not really sure I'd call this fixed if it still doesn't do what it says it does. Maybe changed it, but it's not fixed. Hey guys, Nightfall here, and yesterday we got a brand new patch that was supposed to do a lot of things, but one of the major things they stated was supposed to be fixed was the Rapid Fire and Muzzle booster attachments causing less recoil on some weapons, which we all know by now it was the assault rifles, so I don't know why they didn't just say that, but to my knowledge it was all of the assault rifles. And if you saw my previous video, you know that this initially got me annoyed because this wasn't really the issue. The real issue was the recoil was there, it was just only present when you were trying to control it. So if they didn't even understand the real issue, how could they have fixed it? Well, I tried to test it yesterday by comparing it to the same test I did pre-patch, and as some of you absolute geniuses pointed out, I'm just an idiot, and I also updated the vertical sensitivity to match the horizontal sensitivity when you're ADS a little better, because that was a whole separate issue. So that may have thrown off some of my testing, and I decided the only real way to tell if these were truly fixed is to redo our quality check on them. So this is our official post-patch quality check on the Rapid Fire and Muzzle booster on the AR specific. And we have a little extra surprise test at the end, so make sure you stick around for that. Before I get started on these tests, I do want to remind everyone that I'll be live right here on YouTube tomorrow night, Friday, August 2nd at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, to discuss the game and my apparent horrible takes with anyone who wants to stop by and have a real discussion about the game. I'm not saying you have to agree with anything I say, but at least be able to form a cohesive thought, and no need for name calling or anything like that. There's just no point. Also, if you haven't followed me on Twitter or joined our Discord yet, the links for both will be in the description. And as soon as custom games come out, or private matches, whatever you want to call them, are live in XDefiant, you can bet we'll be running some fun little contests. But enough shameless plugging, let's go ahead and get into these tests. All tests will be done on the ACR like they were the last time, and first up we have no attachments on the left versus muzzle booster on the right. And we're going to test two things in one go: fire rate and recoil. Nothing should have changed with fire rate, and these all passed before, so everything should still be fine here, but we're going to test it anyway. So right off the bat, we do find our fire rate test is a pass because it very closely matches what we should have expected to get, and actually it's a little bit faster than what we should be getting, but always room for error on these tests. The recoil, however, tells a different story. The room for error on these is very small, and I found that plotting them on a graph can easily be manipulated based on the size of the actual image and whatnot. So instead, I superimposed these red lines over the screen at the highest mark, and since both tests are at the same distance and same location, any room for error should be very minimal. So when you see it should be at 164 pixels and it's only at 159, it's off by 6. And normally I might say that it's in an acceptable range. It may even look like an acceptable difference to your eyes, but since this is the second quality check we're doing on these attachments and they claim it's fixed, I'm putting them under a little bit more scrutiny where it makes sense, of course. Next up, we'll have our no attachment versus the rapid fire, and again, the fire rate passes, but the recoil is even worse, and we can see our red lines show that it is now 10 pixels off of what we should have been getting, so not looking too great here. But just wait, the next test is the best one yet. I threw both attachments on here, Rapid Fire and Muzzle Booster, and put it up against the base ACR. And again, fire rate looks super close, so that's a pass, but the recoil hasn't really moved and is now 25 pixels off of where it should be. Again, it's possible we have some error in these tests, but 25 pixels is quite a lot. And to have barely any movement, if any at all, from adding a muzzle booster on top of a rapid fire is kind of disturbing. So something is still going on with these attachments. And if you're somebody who wants a graph, here's all 4 tests on a graph so you could try to visualize them all at the same time. And it does look like they get slightly higher, and that could be due to I didn't place them on the lines at the bottom perfectly, or the sizing could be off on 1 or 2 of them. So don't take this one as 100% accurate, but even if it was, the yellow muzzle booster is 10% more than the no attachment purple. Does the black pattern, which is both attachments, look like it's 30% more than the purple? Not a chance. But going back to the real issue that was happening, it only happened when trying to control recoil. So let's see what happens when we do just that And for this one, I switched up the testing just a little bit. Instead of adjusting a basic recoil script, which is just mimicking pulling your right stick down and left or right depending on the recoil of the weapon by a certain percentage, all I did here was make the right stick pull down by 1% straight down, just enough to make it think that you were trying to control recoil without actually offsetting anything. So keep in mind that because it is pulling down a tiny bit, if the recoil pattern is exactly the same, the weapon's recoil really isn't working as it should be, or at least the same as it does when you don't touch your right stick at all. And a small disclaimer here and a little backstory before everyone tries to come at me for cheating again. I used Acronis for testing purposes only in the firing range on a secondary account, hence the base weapon skin. I have not ever used this in an online match, and I would never condone cheating in any fashion. I was accused of cheating on like day 3 of playing this game, and I made several videos of all camera angles watching me play to try to prove to this one random guy I wasn't cheating. So if you're even slightly curious or think for a second that I'm cheating while actually playing, go and watch those videos and see for yourself. The only reason I even have Acronis to begin with is because I bought it so that I could make scripts to sell to somebody else on a completely different game 3 years ago. It wasn't even a Ubisoft game, nor was it any kind of first-person shooter game. So am I guilty of writing scripts and giving them to other people for other games? Sure, come at me for that. Do I use any kind of recoil scripts or anything like that while I'm playing? Absolutely not, and I've already proven this. But let's get back to the testing. So our first test is both guns, no attachments. Left side is no recoil control at all. Same test we already did before. And now on the right is no attachments with the 1% vertical pull down. And for the most part, it looks similar. So this one may be working as it should. And the next test is the same exact setup, just now have the muzzle booster on the right. And again, they look very similar. So no real cause for concern here. Our third test showcases the rapid fire barrel. And while they reach the same high point, the spacing is a little off, so I'd almost say it has slightly more recoil now when you try to control it. The final test here is the real head scratcher. Throwing both attachments on and running our test shows that it now has more recoil even with a 1% pull down. So ultimately, was anything really fixed? Fixed would imply that it now does what it's supposed to do, and we've seen here that that's not the case. So clearly, because the first couple were the exact same and the last one shows that there's slightly more, you're still getting even more recoil when you try to control it. Unfortunately, there's no way for me to really test this against pre-patch stuff because of the sensitivity change that they made to the vertical sensitivity, but something's definitely not right here. And because none of these technically passed the recoil testing that we did on any of them, except for the base AR, which there's really no way to test if that is more or less than it should be because that is our baseline test, these attachments are currently going to get a fail. But that's all I got. If you enjoy the content, consider liking the video and checking out some of my other content and maybe subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.